This airport cost over $1 billion to build. It was supposed to be a spectacular state-of-the-art mega hub, featuring the longest runway in Europe and a massive terminal designed for millions of passengers. But when the grand opening day finally arrived, nobody came. Today, we are exploring the ultimate billion-dollar mistake. It is a colossal ghost town sitting completely abandoned in the middle of nowhere. How did this happen? Let's uncover the craziest financial disaster in aviation history. To truly understand how a mistake of this massive size could happen, we have to travel back in time to the early 2000s. During this time, Spain was experiencing an incredible economic miracle. It was a golden era of wealth, and the country was caught in the middle of a massive construction and real estate bubble. Money was flowing like a river. Banks were handing out loans to almost anyone who asked. Across the country, developers were building luxury apartment complexes, giant shopping malls, and massive highways at a record-breaking pace. There was a powerful, almost arrogant belief in the air. If we build it, they will come. It was in this atmosphere of extreme optimism that a group of wealthy private investors and local politicians came up with a bold, ambitious plan. They looked at Madrid's main international airport, Barajas. Barajas was getting extremely crowded. It was operating at maximum capacity, and airlines were complaining about delays and high fees. The investors had a light bulb moment. What if they built a brand new private airport to act as a relief valve for Madrid? A secondary hub that would offer cheaper fees for low-cost airlines, handle massive amounts of cargo, and bring endless wealth to the local region. They decided to name it the Don Quixote Airport, after the famous Spanish novel, before eventually settling on the more professional name, Ciudad Real Central Airport. The plan was approved. The investors pooled together hundreds of millions of euros, and the massive construction vehicles rolled in. They were not just trying to build a small regional airstrip. They wanted to build a world-class aviation mega hub. The ambition was staggering. When construction began, the developers spared absolutely no expense. The budget skyrocketed to an unbelievable 1 billion euros. That is over 1.1 billion US dollars. It was the first and only international airport in Spain to be built entirely with private money. Let's look at exactly what that $1 billion bought them, because the sheer scale of this place is mind-blowing. They paved a runway that was 4,000 meters long, about 13,100 feet. To put that into perspective, it was one of the longest runways in all of Europe. It was specifically designed to handle the absolute largest airplanes on the planet, including the massive Airbus A380 and giant Antonov cargo planes. They constructed a sprawling, beautiful 28,000 square meter passenger terminal. It was designed to comfortably handle up to 10 million passengers every single year. The airport featured a towering, ultra-modern air traffic control tower, an immense cargo facility designed to process 47,000 tons of freight annually, and a massive parking lot capable of holding thousands of cars. Everything was top of the line. The floors were polished to a mirror shine. The baggage carousels featured the latest automated technology. The security checkpoints were state-of-the-art. If you just looked at the pictures, Ciudad Real Central Airport was a masterpiece of modern engineering. It looked like the airport of the future. The investors were already counting their money, imagining the endless stream of tourists, business travelers, and cargo planes that would soon be landing on their beautiful, expensive runway. But there was a fatal flaw hidden in their brilliant business plan. A flaw so obvious, so ridiculous, that it is hard to believe nobody stopped to point it out. You see, an airport is only useful if it is actually close to the people who need to use it. The investors wanted this airport to serve the massive population of Madrid, but Ciudad Real Central Airport was not built in Madrid. It wasn't even built near Madrid. It was built over 200 kilometers. That is about 125 miles south of the capital city. It was constructed in the region of Castilla-La Mancha, which is essentially an empty, dry, agricultural flatland. It was literally built in the middle of nowhere. Now, you might be asking, why would anyone fly into an airport that is a 2-hour drive away from their actual destination? The investors had an answer for that. Their entire master plan relied heavily on a magical piece of infrastructure, the AVE high-speed train. Spain has an incredible network of bullet trains, and there was a track running relatively close to the new airport. The planners promised the public and the airlines that they were going to build a brand new high-speed train station right inside the airport terminal. The sales pitch was simple. You land in the desert, you grab your bags, you hop on a bullet train, and boom! You are in the center of Madrid in just 50 minutes. It sounded perfect on paper, but here is the heartbreaking reality. That high-speed train station was never built. The connection was never made. The Spanish government, who controlled the train network, never fully committed to adding the stop. So suddenly, the developers were left with a billion-dollar mega airport trapped in an isolated desert, with absolutely no fast public transportation linking it to the capital city. If a tourist landed there, their only option to get to Madrid was an incredibly expensive taxi ride or a slow, grueling 2-hour bus journey. But even with this massive problem, the investors pushed forward. They had already spent the $1 billion. They had to open the doors. Unfortunately, their timing could not have been worse. Ciudad Real Central Airport officially opened its shiny new doors to the public in December 2008. If you know your history, that year should send a shiver down your spine. In the autumn of 2008, the global financial crisis struck. The world economy completely melted down. The massive Spanish real estate bubble that funded this airport violently popped. Banks collapsed. Millions of people lost their jobs. And the flow of money stopped completely. People stopped going on vacation. Airlines started cutting costs and canceling routes. Suddenly, nobody wanted to take a risk on a brand new, unproven airport located in the middle of nowhere. The grand opening was a ghost town from day one. Instead of the millions of passengers they projected, the airport struggled to get even a few hundred. For a brief, desperate moment, a few low-cost airlines tried to make it work. Ryanair and Vueling offered incredibly cheap, heavily subsidized tickets to cities like London and Paris, but the demand was just not there. Passengers hated the terrible commute to Madrid. The planes were flying half empty. The massive 28,000 square meter terminal, designed for crowds of 10 million, echoed with the footsteps of perhaps 20 people at a time. The cafes closed. The duty-free shops never even unpacked their boxes. The airport was bleeding money at a terrifying rate. It cost millions of euros a month just to keep the lights on, pay the security guards, and maintain the air traffic control system. By 2012, just 4 short years after its grand opening, the dream was officially dead. The management company filed for bankruptcy, leaving behind over 300 million euros in unpaid debt. The final flight took off, the giant doors were locked, and the €1 billion facility was abandoned to the scorching Spanish sun. For years, Ciudad Real sat completely empty. It became an international laughingstock, a giant monument to greed and bad planning. In fact, it was so empty that the famous British television show Top Gear rented out the massive property. In season 20, Jeremy Clarkson, Richard Hammond, and James May brought 3 incredibly loud, incredibly fast supercars, including a McLaren, and raced them up and down the main runway. They didn't have to worry about hitting an airplane, because there wasn't a single airplane for 100 miles. But while the world was laughing, the bankruptcy lawyers were crying. They needed to sell the airport to pay off the massive debts. The property went to auction. First, they asked for 100 million euros. No one answered. They lowered the price to 80 million euros. Silent. Then, they lowered it to 50 million euros. Still, nobody wanted it. Finally, in 2015, a truly unbelievable moment happened in the courtroom. A Chinese investment group named Zanin International stepped forward with a bid to buy the entire property. They wanted the 4,000-meter runway, the giant terminal, the massive control tower, and all the surrounding land. Their official bid? 10,000 euros. Yes, you heard that correctly. 10,000 euros. About the price of a used Honda Civic. They wanted to buy a €1 billion megastructure for pocket chain. The investment group claimed they would invest millions later to turn it into a cargo hub for Chinese exports. But the Spanish judge was absolutely insulted. The judge immediately rejected the 10,000 euro bid, stating it was ridiculously low and legally unacceptable. Finally, a year later in 2016, a different company called Ciudad Real International Airport stepped in and bought the entire complex for a slightly more respectable 56 million euros. It was still a massive 95% discount off the original construction cost, but at least it wasn't the price of a used car. The new owners knew they could never make this a passenger airport. The reputation was ruined, and the geography hadn't changed. So they decided to pivot. They marketed Ciudad Real as a maintenance and storage facility. For a few years, business was slow. But then, in early 2020, the world changed forever. The global COVID-19 pandemic struck. Overnight, global travel completely stopped. Airlines around the world faced a massive, unprecedented crisis. They had thousands of giant airplanes and absolutely nowhere to park them. The busy hubs like Heathrow, Frankfurt, and Madrid-Barajas completely ran out of parking space. Suddenly, airlines remembered the giant empty ghost airport in the middle of the Spanish desert. In a bizarre twist of fate, Ciudad Real Central Airport finally got the traffic it had always dreamed of. Dozens of massive wide-body jets, including Airbus A380s and Boeing 747s, flew into the desert. But they didn't bring passengers. They came to sleep. The dry, hot climate of central Spain is actually perfect for storing aircraft, as it prevents rust and corrosion. The owners of the airport started charging airlines a daily fee to park their grounded fleets on the massive 4,000-meter runway and the giant taxiways. For the first time in its history, the billion-dollar ghost town was actually making money. It wasn't the glamorous international travel hub the original investors had dreamed of in 2008. But it was finally serving a purpose. It had become a high-tech, highly expensive parking lot. Today, travel has returned to normal, and many of those parked planes have left the desert to take to the skies once again. Ciudad Real Central Airport continues to operate quietly, mostly handling cargo, aircraft maintenance, and private flights. The massive passenger terminal remains largely empty, a quiet museum dedicated to a time of extreme financial hubris. The story of Ciudad Real is one of the most fascinating tales in modern engineering. It is a harsh, $1 billion lesson in economics. It teaches us that you cannot force demand. You can build the most beautiful, expensive, and advanced building in the world, but if you don't build it where people actually need it, you are just pouring concrete into the desert. What do you guys think? Was this the worst financial mistake in aviation history? Or do you think the airport might one day finally succeed as a major cargo hub? I would love to hear your thoughts, so please drop a comment down below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the world's most expensive ghost airport, please hit that like button, share this video with a friend, and subscribe to the channel for more incredible stories from around the world.